All right. Damn. We got this video by Jimmy High Roller now. He is already the best player in the world now, obviously with Wemby in a thumbnail. Hey, Wemby, he's making headlines for his first trip to the NBA Finals at his age, first time in the playoffs in his life, and he's already there. That's legendary, that's definitely something, it means something, but damn. Now, when it comes to him being the best player in the NBA, honestly, in my opinion, if Wemby wins it all with a Finals MVP, I will call him the best player in the NBA. Because I mean he beat the reigning back-to-back MVP. The reigning champion SGA, and on top of that, when it comes to Jokic, I mean Jokic for real. Like when it comes to his case of being the best, like honestly, it's at its low. It's definitely at its lowest it's been in years because of that postseason that he just had recently. He's definitely was at his worst there. But damn, it is what it is. Anyways, what do you guys think of that? You let me know down there in the comments, but let's jump right in. Obviously, Chet, that dude is catching a lot of heat on the internet, along Wemby, catching a lot of praise, definitely. Especially for, his performance in game seven. This dude came out there and shot the ball 2 times in 33 minutes, scored only 4 points. And yeah, I mean, hey, it's crazy when you look back at their history. Those guys met, at that tournament, that championships, if I can remember, Team USA versus Team France, like seven bunch of 17-year-olds, whatever. And Chet, USA, they won that one over Wemby. And Wemby, hey, the way Wemby was mad and everything, he swore to himself he would never feel this way ever again. It's like, hey, you were beating him when your countries were going at it, but now in the NBA, that man is babying you. Damn, Chet. Came a long way. Wemby already top 10 all time. Insufferable team of all time. Insufferable.
LeBron James all the way up to #2 on your all-time list. I have him at 9.
Look at me, I'm a Spurs fan. My team is perfectly run and well respected.
That had nothing to do with Wemby or whatever. This was about LeBron. Yeah, yeah, I know. Skip Bayless having LeBron at #9 on his list is crazy, but yeah.
With high emotional intelligence.
The NBA Finals are here, which means we've got some hot takes to look at today. Playoff edition.
Hot takes.
The good ones, the bad ones, and the downright atrocious.
Atrocious. Of course, it's coming from Kendrick Perkins.
Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings.
The
playoffs are here, and right after 6 weeks of NBA playoff basketball, we are now down to just 2 teams. And while Knicks and Spurs fans get to enjoy the exhilarating experience of watching their team fight for an NBA title, the rest of us have been relegated to watch from the sidelines as we spew out hot takes about teams we couldn't beat. And today, we're going to take a look at some of these takes. Starting with this one that comes from a fan who asks, is Wemby the quickest someone has ever climbed to arguably #1 in the league? Wemby's in year 3. Neither LeBron or MJ ascended to #1 so quickly. And this is
I can't agree with that because, no, his question is Wemby the quickest someone has ever climbed to arguably, he said no, he didn't say to, consensus or undisputed, #1 player in the league. He said arguably, arguably #1 player in the league. And honestly, no, for real, because okay, you're talking about, what Wemby is, has going on right now. It's like this is year 3 for Michael Jordan in year 3. What was it, like 1987? He was already in that conversation of those guys, that had a legit argument, obviously. Because the thing is that in order for you to have to be arguably #1 in the league, obviously you have to have a legit case. But then it's like no one else in the league can be like the undisputed best player in the NBA. No one else can, because obviously there's a difference between having a legit case and being the consensus best player in the NBA. Like when you're the consensus best player, it's because there's just your case is so strong that there's no legit case for anyone else. Okay, so when it comes to this, obviously for now, there's no undisputed best player in the NBA, which we got Jokic, Shea, and Wemby now. Obviously Jokic and Shea don't have this undisputed case, so obviously which which obviously, allows Wemby to have a legit case and be arguably number one, obviously. Like, same thing for LeBron in '06, like in '06 at that time, you had guys like, Tim Duncan, Kobe. But I mean, that's the thing. None of those guys were, consensus best player in the NBA, So, which is why, by year three, LeBron also had a case, whatever. And honestly, I think this is the case for so many other legends. Like for example, Tim Duncan, who won a championship, like what, his second season in the NBA? Tim Duncan, yeah. Like Tim Duncan, I think by '99 he, with that title that he won, with David Robinson and everything, he was arguably, number one player in the league. I think Shaq too, with your Orlando Magic as well, and Larry Bird in the '80s. I mean, Magic Johnson, winning, Finals MVP as a rookie. Like, nah, I don't agree with this take there.
Interesting, because there's two parts to this take. The first part is that Wemby is arguably the best player in the world, and the second is that no one else has been the best player in the world by the end of their third season. Both of those statements a bit subjective. I think it's definitely fair to say that Victor Wembanyama is arguably the best player in the world right now. If it's not him, then it's Jokic or Shea. And regardless of who you pick, there's no wrong answer. But the key word here is arguably. So has any other player in NBA history climbed to be arguably the best player in the league by year three? And the answer is yeah. Wilt Chamberlain won a league MVP as a rookie. By the end of Kareem's third season, he led the league in scoring twice, had 2 MVPs, a finals MVP, and was definitively the best player in the NBA. Larry Bird was the runner-up in MVP voting in his second and third seasons in the league and was arguably the best player in the league. And of course, there's Michael Jordan, who despite not having the hardware as tangible proof, was generally regarded as one of, if not the best player in the world by the end of his third season in '87. Now, looking into more recent NBA history, there's Shaquille O'Neal, who was arguably the best player in the league by '95, neck and neck with David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon. Although Shaq held the crown by 2000, in Tim Duncan's third season, he was in conversations as the best player in the league after leading the Spurs to a championship in just his second season. Another prodigy with an underrated early career is Kevin Durant, who was regarded as virtually the only player who could go toe-to-toe with a prime LeBron by his third season in the league in 20.
Yeah, but the thing is that at that time, when LeBron was in Miami, I think LeBron was the undisputed best player in the NBA. So I don't think KD was arguably the best player in the NBA. I mean, he was definitely top 3, but he wasn't arguably because LeBron was definitely consensus best player in the NBA in the Miami Heat. So I don't think so. Yeah.
10. He finished second in MVP voting, and although he wasn't the best player in the world, he was next in line by his third season. And then there's Derrick Rose, who wasn't regarded as the best player in the world by the end of year 3, but he did get an award, a small consolation prize for his efforts. And of course, there's year 3 LeBron, who ascended in the 2000s with a crowd of all-time greats. By the end of his third season, there wasn't a definitive best player in the world. Between Dirk, Kobe, Nash, Duncan, the conversation was pretty open for interpretation. But there's no denying he was certainly in it, finishing second in MVP voting in his third season in the league. The moral of this story being that throughout modern NBA history, even amongst the greatest players of all time, there probably hasn't been a single player that was the consensus #1 player in the world by the end of year 3.
Yeah, the consensus best player in the world by year 3, that's a different conversation. We're talking about arguably. But consensus, I think honestly we would have to wait until Wemby finishes, like the consensus best player. Like, I mean, what do you guys think? Like, if Wemby wins this championship this year with a Finals MVP, would that make him the consensus? Which means that like there's no legit argument for anyone else. Like his case will be so strong. That's what it would mean, literally. What do you guys think?
Falls in the same category as LeBron and Shaq and Jordan and Bird, making a very strong case as arguably the best player in the league. I wouldn't say he's definitively the best player in the world, but I'd say being in the same sentence as those guys is a good consolation. Now this next take comes from a fan who says you could replace Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 30 different players and the Thunder still win the title. And if this isn't...
it's stuff like that people started pulling out, just to show how how unvaluable SGA was to the Thunder, and how and why he shouldn't have won MVP or whatever. Like, this is bull crap, okay? Like, no, okay. SGA is very valuable to the Thunder. Like, I get that he had a good team and everything, but come on now. Like, bro, they can play really bad, bro, without him, bro. The Thunder can play really bad without him. I'm sure Jimmy's gonna jump into this. So let's
Evidence that
watch.
SGA has the worst PR of any superstar of his era? I don't know what is. 30 players. You know what the Thunder's record is this season, including the playoffs with Shea? 65-13. You know their record without him? 8-6. 84% win percentage with Shea, 57% win percentage without him. The Thunder's record over the last 3 seasons with Shea, 204 and 56. 78% win percentage. Their record without Shea, 15-12.
Wow.
A mediocre 56% win percentage
Yeah, that
without
shows you
Shea
something,
Gilgeous-Alexander over the last 3 seasons. For perspective, from 2016 through 2018, when the Warriors had the league in a chokehold, Golden State's record with Steph Curry was 215 and 44. Their record without him was 30-19. A gap that is identical to the Thunder with and without Shea.
Wow.
Because it turns out, not only do great successful players have great impact, but they usually have great teams built around their unique skill set and talent. Time and time again, we penalize players for being a part of a good team. Fans minimize Steph because of how good the Warriors were. They downplayed LeBron in Miami because of how good the Heat were. And you can't bring up Jordan without someone mentioning how great the team around him was. But all of the true all-time greats had great teams around them. If social media existed in the 90s, all you would ever hear about is how stacked the Bulls are and the unfair advantage MJ has.
Yeah.
Steph had the most lethal team in the history of basketball behind him. Bird and Magic played with rotations filled exclusively with Hall of Famers. This is just the way it goes. And the irony of all of it is that in many cases, the perceived caliber of the team as a whole can often be the result of the guy leading the charge. Great players make their teammates look better. You'll often hear the hypothetical of swapping player X with player Y and which team would perform better with their new star. For example, swap Jokic with SGA and the Thunder still win a championship, but the Nuggets would be in the play-in, or something like that. But that's not how basketball works. Good teams are built with intention. They are built with specificity. Shea is a great.
So this whole thing about drag and dropping players across teams, without thinking about how those players would actually fit with them, just by thinking about how, everyone just looks at this shit surface level. Okay, they're so good when they play around him. Okay, you take that player off the roster, and anyone else comes in there, it's gonna be the same thing. That's what they think. But no. Those players got to fit with him. Like, they're doing this good with that guy because they actually fit with him. That's the thing, bro. Everyone is so surface level with this shit.
But Shea cannot do what Luka does, and Luka can't do what Shea does. Same goes for Ant or Brunson. Great players, completely different skill sets. Great rosters are like a recipe. You need the right amount of the right ingredients to make it work. Change one ingredient and you risk screwing up the entire dish. In fact, we've already seen what happens when talent is viewed as some perfectly transferable property. In the super team era, where organizations had this exact mentality, teams were slapped together with no intention, no design, no cohesion, just stacking up as much talent as possible for the sake of it. And it almost never worked out. Regardless of what you think of Shea's game, he is a very unique and very crucial ingredient to a recipe that has been perfected over the last half-decade. And there are not 30 players who could fill his shoes and lead OKC to a title.
Bro.
This take is absurd. Now, this next take comes from a fan who says there has never been a more difficult time to win an NBA championship than right now.
I mean, hey, when you look at the fact that, we haven't had a repeat champions in like 8 years, hey, who knows?
And I completely agree. After the Warriors ran the table on the NBA last decade,
that's what it seems like. I mean, hey, like, for real, like, it's almost been a decade for real since we've had a repeat champion. So, hey.
The entire meta of professional basketball shifted. Teams have gotten smarter, they've gotten deeper, and although talent will always prevail, the path to winning a ring in today's NBA requires far more than just talent to get it done. This is now the 8th season in a row that a different team will be crowned champions, the longest stretch of unique championship teams in NBA history. In fact, there have been 14 unique teams in the finals over the last 8 years. That is half the NBA. We are now creeping up on an entire era of absolute parity in the NBA. And this is in complete opposition of what we saw in previous eras. Whether it was the Celtics and Lakers winning 8 of the 10 championships in the 80s, the Bulls going 6 for 10 in the 90s, the Spurs and Lakers combining for 7 rings in the 2000s, or the Warriors winning 4 in 8 seasons. Dynasties and perpetual winning have been a staple in the NBA for decades. But due to multiple factors, such as advanced analytics giving teams the insight to optimize their rosters and game plans, teams prioritizing depth more than ever before, the rise of rotation-level players and their impact on a night-to-night basis, and the league itself enacting new rules to actively fight against teams building dynasty-worthy rosters. Not only is it more challenging to win a championship now than ever before, it's more equitable. No longer do you have to have the best player on the court to win a series. No longer can you pair up a couple of mega talents and run through a conference. The 10th man off the bench can be just as pivotal in today's game as your second option. The natural evolution of the game has slowly leveled the playing field for teams competing for a title, and this shrunken gap between top-end teams now leaves the margin for error small enough that truly anything can happen. We still see glimpses of all world-caliber players willing their teams to victories, but those moments have now become a rarity. Before this era of parity, LeBron James was able to will his way to 8 straight finals appearances off of sheer ability and determination. This does not happen in today's NBA. A great bench is no longer a bonus, it is a necessity. A great coach is no longer an edge, it's a requirement. Right when you think one team has separated themselves from the pack as a potential dynasty candidate, the league adjusts faster than it ever did before to counter their strengths. The basketball scale has and will always tilt in the favor of talent. One thing that remains true is that winning a championship means being in possession of one of, if not the best player in the world. But it's everything else. Depth, fit, cohesion, chemistry, schemes, rotations that has leveled the playing field and can now tilt the scale just as much.
Yeah, like getting the right pieces around you, for a whole team, just honestly getting the right pieces around you and not just, focusing on this whole surface level stuff of just getting like stars and stars and stars in there. Like all of that right there, it doesn't work anymore. Like you gotta be, again, like it's the same thing, like get the right ingredients for the recipe for real. Like this is what's necessary to win. And bruh, every team out there is understanding this now at this point. I think, they're all trying to find the perfect ingredients, for their own recipe, and it's not easy out there to do this, bro. This right there makes it definitely a lot more difficult, It's like having to create your own potion, having to do all this research, whatever.
Great take. And our last take comes from a fan who says the regular season has become all but irrelevant, and the playoffs are the only thing that actually matters, both in terms of discourse and legacy. And I could not agree more with this take. In the past, the playoffs were just a ramped-up version of the regular season. Tougher defense, tendencies exaggerated, more intense matchups. The consequences of the playoffs were held to a similar regard. What a player did in the postseason mattered the most, but what they did in the regular season still mattered quite a bit. But now more than ever, the postseason has become completely disconnected from the regular season. The playoffs don't just feel more intense. At times, it actually feels like we're watching a completely different sport. And this is what happens when the regular season is comprised of some teams resting players, other teams using the regular season as one long testing ground in preparation for the playoffs, and the rest of the teams literally trying to lose as many games as possible. It has become evident that many organizations do not take the regular season seriously whatsoever.
It's true.
In return, many fans are now choosing not to take it seriously either. You won the league's most prestigious award, the MVP, Well, why should I care? It doesn't even look like you do. You average 25 a night? Yeah, well, a quarter of the league isn't even trying to win games. If all you guys care about is the playoffs, then all we're going to care about is the playoffs. And now here we are, at the point where a 6-game series can hold more weight than an entire season of basketball. Legacies, reputations, the entire merit of a player's game are now decided strictly off of the playoffs.
Literally,
Tracy
bro.
McGrady was a fantastic player, and to this day, he is rightfully remembered as such. Tracy McGrady never made it out of the first round. These days, if you win an MVP, but you don't back it up as the best player throughout the entire playoffs, you are instantly a fraud. Steve
Yeah,
Nash won
facts,
back-to-back
yeah.
MVPs and never made it to the finals. Dominique Wilkins is a legend, a staple of 80s basketball. He also never made it to the conference finals once in his entire career. Meanwhile, I just watched Jalen Duren wash away fan support, 70 games of awesome basketball, and a max contract in just 3 weeks of bad playoff basketball. I just watched arguably the most impactful regular season of all time get dismissed because of one bad round in the playoffs. I heard someone
Yeah,
say
yeah.
Joel Embiid, former league MVP, 4th highest scoring average in NBA history, one of the most talented bigs of all time, is not a Hall of Famer because of his lack of playoff success. Do I think this new standard being imposed on players today is unfair? Yeah, I really do. Not everyone's gonna win a championship. But do I also think the players and teams have done this to themselves? Yeah. The
Yes,
symptom
exactly.
of teams
Like,
coasting their way
They
through
did
the
this,
regular
they did, do this to themselves to a certain extent. So hey, I
I
mean,
really do. Not everyone's gonna win a championship. But do I also think the players and teams have done this to themselves? Yeah. The symptom of teams coasting their way through the regular season without any real sense of urgency is that we as fans now know the real test of a player's game. Actually, the only true test of their game and their abilities is in the playoffs, which inherently makes the regular season and everything that happens in it a lot less important, and everything that happens in the postseason, even if it's a 4-game sample size, the only thing that matters. And although I really wish this wasn't the current state of the league and its discourse, I agree with this take. But let me know what you think.
yeah, I
Share
mean,
your-
it's crazy when it's crazy that this take is actually it's crazy that this is actually the case. But hey, it is the case. Whatever, man.
your hot takes in the comments below. And as always, the hotter, the better.
Crazy now. Damn. What do you guys think of that, man? I honestly think it's on the players really to start taking the regular season a lot more serious, than they usually do, Like start playing the regular season like, every game matters, like every single game is your last one. But obviously they're not going to do that. You're most likely not going to do that because they want to, be available for the playoffs and everything. But hey, which is probably, which is the reason why a lot of people, will only care about the playoffs. But damn, hey, well, what do you know? You get what you put out. You've shown yourselves as not really caring about the regular season. Load managing like crazy, whatever. And now players, fans don't really care about the regular season. But damn, anyways, that's gonna be it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. What do you think about that? Peace out.